You know that gut feeling you get when something just doesn't smell right, like leaving a carton of milk out on the counter in the middle of July? That is exactly the vibe we have been getting from Washington, D.C. for a long time. And folks, let me tell you, the stench is finally becoming impossible to ignore. We always knew there was a massive disconnect between what these politicians scream into the microphones and what they actually do behind closed doors, didn't we? It's the oldest trick in the book. They preach socialism to the masses while they practice capitalism for themselves. But today, the curtain hasn't just been pulled back, it has been ripped off the hinges and set on fire. We are talking about the darling of the far left, the queen of the Green New Deal, finally getting caught with her hand deep in the cookie jar. And guess what? It's not just cookies in there. It's a whole lot of cash that belongs to the American people. Before we dive into the nitty-gritty of this absolute bombshell, if you are tired of the mainstream media feeding you scraps while the fat cats feast, you know what to do. Go ahead and smash that comment button, hit subscribe, and ring that notification bell so you never miss out on the truth they don't want you to hear. We are building a community here that actually cares about this country, so join the ride. Let's get real for a second about who we are talking about here. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the bartender turned congresswoman, the voice of the oppressed, the woman who wore a dress saying tax the rich to a gala that costs more to attend than most seniors make in 5 years. We were told she was different. We were told she was one of us. She was supposed to be the champion for the little guy, fighting against the corporate machine. Well, folks, it turns out the machine pays pretty well if you know which levers to pull. The news breaking today isn't just a scandal. It is a complete and total betrayal of every single working-class American who bought into the act. We aren't talking about a parking ticket or a clerical error here. We are looking at a level of financial gymnastics that would make Wall Street blush. Here is the kicker that's going to make your blood boil. While you are sitting at your kitchen table, trying to figure out how to stretch your Social Security check to cover both your prescription meds and your heating bill, the FBI has just kicked down the doors on what looks like one of the most hypocritical schemes in modern history. And who do we have to thank for connecting the dots? None other than Dan Bongino, a man who knows a thing or two about how the swamp operates. He didn't just bring receipts, he brought the whole filing cabinet. The investigation has uncovered a paper trail that leads straight to a $4.2 million mansion. You heard me right. $4.2 million. And the cherry on top, it was allegedly paid for in cash. Now, I don't know about you, but the last time I checked, public service salaries don't usually cover multi-million-dollar estates paid upfront. Something in the math just doesn't add up, unless you factor in the sellout variable. Think about the sheer audacity of this situation. We have got seniors in this country, people over 60 who built this nation with their bare hands, literally counting pennies at the grocery store. I see it every day. They are deciding between buying a decent cut of meat or saving gas money to visit the grandkids. They played by the rules their whole lives. They paid their taxes. They trusted the system. And what do they get in return? Inflation that eats their savings alive and a political class that laughs all the way to the bank. A stood on the House floor and wept for the poor. She screamed about income inequality until she was blue in the face. But behind the scenes, according to these explosive reports, she was allegedly funneling millions through shell companies. Shell companies. That is the kind of stuff you expect from a cartel boss in a movie, not an elected official who claims to represent the Bronx. It gets even messier when you look at the details. The allegations aren't just about her lining her own pockets. It's about the network. The reports indicate shady consulting contracts for her boyfriend. Oh, you gotta love that, right? Keeping it in the family. It's the classic pay-to-play nonsense that has turned Washington into a sewer. While your grandson struggles to find a decent job despite having a college degree, the political elite are inventing fake jobs for their lovers and friends. They are moving money around like a shell game on a New York City sidewalk, hoping you are too distracted by their woke slogans to notice the ball is gone. It is insulting. It treats the American voter like a fool. And honestly, it hurts. It hurts to see the very institutions that are supposed to protect our elderly and our vulnerable being used as personal piggy banks for the power-hungry. Hold on, before we go any further into how this house of cards collapsed, take a second to let me know in the comments. Do you think our justice system will actually hold her accountable, or is this going to be another slap on the wrist? I want to hear your thoughts. Also, don't forget to subscribe and turn on those notifications so you are the first to know when the next update drops. Now, let's talk about the specific harm this does to our faith in the country. When you have someone like AOC, who built her entire brand on moral superiority, getting exposed for this kind of alleged fraud, it destroys the social contract. Our seniors, the backbone of America, deserve stability. They deserve to know that the taxes they paid for decades aren't ending up in a slush fund for a politician's luxury real estate portfolio. Every dollar that gets siphoned off by corruption is a dollar that isn't fixing a pothole, isn't supporting Medicare, and isn't securing our borders. It is theft, plain and simple. And it is particularly cruel when the person doing the stealing is the one lecturing you about being greedy. It's like a burglar breaking into your house and then criticizing your furniture while he loads it into his van. The FBI probe, sparked by the relentless digging of patriots like Bongino, suggests this wasn't an accident. This wasn't a mistake on a tax form. You don't accidentally buy a $4.2 million mansion with dark money from billionaire donors. That takes planning. That takes intent. It suggests a level of calculation that is terrifying. These billionaire donors, the very people she claimed to hate, were apparently the ones cutting the checks. Talk about biting the hand that feeds you, or in this case, secretly holding hands with the devil while pretending to be a saint. It turns out the struggle was all an act. The bartending stories, the I can't afford rent in DC narrative, it was all just theatre. High-budget theatre designed to manipulate your emotions while she cashed out. Imagine the frustration of a 65-year-old retired teacher hearing this news. She spent 40 years in a classroom, dealing with budget cuts and buying her own chalk, only to retire on a fixed income that barely covers the basics. She watches the news and sees AOC preaching about equity. And now she finds out that equity apparently means a mansion for the politician and scraps for the teacher. This is why people are angry. This is why the heartland of America is furious. It's not just about politics. It's about dignity. It is about the fundamental unfairness of a two-tiered justice system where the elites play by one set of rules and the rest of us get hammered if we step an inch out of line. But this time, it looks like the hammer is swinging back. We are seeing the unraveling of a carefully constructed myth. The progressive icon is being revealed as just another swamp creature, maybe even swampier than the rest because of the hypocrisy involved. The FBI raiding her records, the exposure of these consulting fees, it's the smoking gun we have been waiting for. It validates every suspicion we have had about the modern political grift. They come to Washington with empty pockets and leave as multimillionaires. How does that math work? It doesn't, unless you are cheating. And finally, someone had the guts to call it out and bring the evidence to light. This investigation isn't just about one woman. It is an indictment of a broken culture in DC. But the fall of AOC is symbolic. It represents the collapse of the woke narrative that has been shoved down our throats for years. If their golden girl is corrupt, what does that say about the whole movement? It tells us that it was never about helping the poor. It was always about power and enrichment. It was a hustle that preyed on the hopes of young people and the patience of older Americans. We are just scratching the surface here, folks. The conviction, the jail time, the absolute humiliation that follows, we are going to cover all of that. But right now, let this sink in. The champion of the poor has been exposed as a puppet for the rich. The mask is off, and the face underneath is not pretty. All right, we are going to take a deep breath because the details of the trial and the sentencing are coming up, and trust me, it gets even crazier. But before we move on, make sure you comment below with your verdict, guilty or innocent. Subscribe to the channel and hit that bell icon. You do not want to miss the next part of this saga where we watch the gavel come down. You ever try to hide a receipt from your spouse because you bought something you arguably didn't need? Maybe a new set of golf clubs or a fancy purse. You tuck it in the glove box, maybe bury it at the bottom of the trash can. It's stressful, right? Now, imagine trying to hide $4 million. You can't exactly stuff that under the mattress. To pull that off, you need a labyrinth. You need smoke, mirrors, and a level of deception that would make a Las Vegas magician jealous. And that is exactly what the FBI found when they started peeling back the layers of AOC's financial onion. It wasn't just one bank account. It was a web. A tangled, messy web of shell companies designed to confuse, distract, and conceal. But here is the thing about webs. Eventually, the spider gets caught in its own silk. Before we break down exactly how this scheme worked, and trust me, you are going to want to take notes on this, do me a favor. If you believe that no politician should be above the law, smash that subscribe button, leave a comment saying justice, and hit the notification bell. Let's send a message that we are watching. So, how did she do it? How does a congresswoman on a government salary allegedly funnel millions into her own pockets without raising a red flag immediately? Enter the consulting gig. The investigation brought to light by Dan Bongino, who, by the way, deserves a medal for doing the job the mainstream media refused to do, showed a pattern that is as old as politics itself. Kickbacks. But they didn't call them kickbacks. They called them strategic consulting fees. The reports detail a series of massive payments made from obscure LLCs directly to companies controlled by her inner circle, specifically linked to her boyfriend. Now, let's be real for a minute. We have seen this guy. What exactly is he consulting on that is worth millions of dollars? Rocket science? Brain surgery? Or is he consulting on how to move cash from a billionaire donor's offshore account into a private real estate holding? The FBI forensic accountants laid it all out. They found transfers labeled as campaign services and brand management that were nothing more than phantom charges. Money would go in from these secretive dark money donor networks, the very billionaires AOC pretends to want to destroy, and then it would bounce around 3 or 4 different shell companies before landing quietly in accounts accessible to the couple. It is the classic shell game. Watch the cup, where's the ball? Oops, the ball is now a mansion in a gated community, and your tax dollars are the ones paying for the table they played on. And let's talk about the IRS for a second. This is where it gets personal for a lot of us, especially our seniors. I talk to folks over 60 every day who are terrified of the IRS. They are scared to death of making a math error on their tax return because they know Uncle Sam will come down on them like a ton of bricks. They pinch pennies, they save their receipts in show boxes, and they lay awake at night worrying if they forgot to declare $50 of interest income. Meanwhile, we have got a sitting congresswoman who was allegedly treating the tax code like a suggestion box. The indictment revealed that while she was demanding you pay your fair share, she was dodging taxes on millions of dollars of unreported income. Think about the arrogance of that. They hired 87,000 new IRS agents, right? That was the big news. They told us it was to go after the super rich. Yeah, right. We all knew who they were really coming for. They were coming for the small business owner, the retired plumber, the grandmother selling knitted blankets on Etsy. But while those agents were busy auditing regular Americans for Venmo transactions, AOC was allegedly swimming in tax-free cash. It is a two-tiered system that spits in the face of every honest taxpayer in this country. This is the part where you have to wonder, where was the media? Where were the watchdogs? For years, anyone who dared to question her finances was labeled a conspiracy theorist, a hater, or worse. The New York Times, CNN, MSNBC, they treated her like royalty. They put her on magazine covers. They fawned over her speeches. They protected her. Why? Because she was useful to the narrative. She was the face of the new America. Admitting she was a fraud would mean admitting they were all taken for a ride, or worse, that they were complicit. But facts are stubborn things. You can ignore them for a while, but you can't ignore a federal indictment backed by wire transfers and deed records. Dan Bongino didn't just find a smoking gun. He found the bullets, the casing, and the receipt for the ammo. The documents showed that the $4.2 million for the mansion wasn't a mortgage. It was a cash buy. Who has that kind of liquidity lying around? I'll tell you who. Someone who is being bankrolled by special interests. The theory is that these billionaire donors used her as a vessel to push their radical agenda, and in return, they set her up for life. She sold her vote, she sold her influence, and she sold out her constituents for a walk-in closet the size of a studio apartment. We are seeing the evidence pile up, and it is ugly. But it is also vindicating. For every American who sat there screaming at their TV screen, knowing something was wrong, this is your moment. You weren't crazy. You were right. The disconnect you felt between her lifestyle and her salary was real. The math never worked because the math was rigged. I want to pause here and ask you guys a serious question. Do you think the IRS will go after the people who help her hide this money, or will they stop at her? Let me know in the comments below. And hey, if you are enjoying this unfiltered breakdown, make sure you are subscribed and have that bell turned on. We are just getting warmed up. Let's circle back to the impact on the elderly, the people on fixed incomes. This is what really grinds my gears. When inflation spiked because of the reckless spending policies she voted for, who got hit the hardest? It wasn't the young professionals in Silicon Valley. It was the seniors. The price of eggs, the price of milk, the cost of heating oil, it skyrocketed. I know people who had to turn their heat down to 60 degrees in the winter just to survive. They sacrificed their comfort and their health. And while they were shivering in their living rooms, the architect of those policies was allegedly shopping for luxury furniture for her multi-million-dollar hideaway. It is a level of cruelty that is hard to wrap your head around. It shows a complete lack of empathy. It proves that for the political elite, people are just numbers. Votes to be harvested, not lives to be cherished. The investigation also uncovered emails. Oh, the emails. You gotta love digital footprints. Communications that allegedly show her discussing how to structure the payments to avoid reporting requirements. That is a felony, folks. Structuring. It's what drug dealers do. It's what mobsters do. It is not what a United States representative is supposed to be doing. These emails, according to the prosecution, reveal a woman who was fully aware of the illegality of her actions. She wasn't a naive girl from the Bronx getting bad advice. She was the ringleader. She knew exactly what she was doing. She was laughing at the laws she swore to uphold. The betrayal here is total. She betrayed the young progressives who looked up to her. She betrayed the working class she claimed to fight for. But most of all, she betrayed the American promise, the idea that public service is about service, not self-enrichment. We are watching the complete moral collapse of a political celebrity. And let me tell you, the fall is going to be hard, and it is going to be fast. As the FBI closed in, the panic started to set in. The reports say there was a flurry of last-minute attempts to cover tracks, to delete files, to shred documents. But in the digital age, nothing is ever truly gone. The forensic team recovered it all. Every transaction, every text message, every lie. They have her dead to rights. And the defense? It is practically non-existent. How do you defend against your own bank statements? How do you explain away a mansion paid for with money that supposedly doesn't exist? You can't. All you can do is watch the walls close in. This is the reality check America needed. It's a wake-up call that the people shouting the loudest about virtue, often the ones with the most to hide. We have been lectured for too long by people with skeletons in their closets. Well, the closet door is open, and the bones are tumbling out. We are moving closer to the trial of the century. You are going to want to be here for the next part, where we talk about the courtroom drama, the desperate pleas, and the moment the judge reads the charges. It is going to be historic. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss part 3. You are not going to want to miss the fireworks when the gavel finally bangs. Stay tuned, because the justice train is coming into the station, and it has no brakes. You know that feeling when the music stops at a party, the lights come on, and suddenly everything looks a lot less glamorous than it did an hour ago? That was exactly the vibe inside the Federal District Court this week. The party is over. The Tax the Rich gala is done. And now, it is time to pay the piper. We are talking about the trial of the century, folks. The United States of America versus Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. If you thought the investigation was juicy, wait until you hear what went down when the lawyers actually started talking. It wasn't just a trial. It was the public dismantling of a brand. A brand that was built on our dime and sold back to us as revolution. Before we get into the play-by-play of this absolute spectacle, do me a solid. If you want to see justice served cold, hit that subscribe button right now. Comment guilty if you think the evidence speaks for itself, and ring that bell. We are tracking this live, and you do not want to miss a beat. Picture the scene. Outside the courthouse, it was chaos. You had the diehard supporters screaming about a political witch hunt, waving their signs, crying on camera. And then, you had the rest of us, the silent majority, the retirees, the veterans, the workers, just waiting for the truth. But inside those heavy oak doors, it was dead silent. You could hear a pin drop. And sitting there, at the defense table, wasn't the loud, finger-wagging congresswoman we used to seeing on Twitter. Oh no. She looked small. She looked pale. For the first time in her career, she didn't have a microphone to hide behind, and she didn't have a friendly media outlet to cut the feed when things got tough. She was staring down the barrel of federal prosecutors who don't care about your Instagram follow account. The prosecution opened up with a line that I think is going to go down in history. The lead prosecutor, a no-nonsense veteran who has put away mob bosses and fraudsters for breakfast, looked the jury in the eye and said, "This case is not about politics. It is about simple arithmetic. You cannot spend money you do not have, unless you stole it." Boom. Simple. Brutal. True. They laid out the timeline we talked about in the last video, but seeing it on the big screen in the courtroom was different. It was a timeline of greed. They showed the dates of her most fiery speeches condemning capitalism, and then matched them up with dates of massive wire transfers into her shell accounts. The hypocrisy was practically glowing on the projector screen. The defense? Man, it was pathetic. It was honestly embarrassing to watch. Her high-priced legal team, paid for, ironically, with funds that are also under scrutiny, tried the victim card. They tried to argue that she was being targeted because she's a powerful woman of color, that the system was out to get her. But here is the problem with that argument. The system didn't force her to buy a $4.2 million mansion in cash. The system didn't force her to allegedly forge consulting contracts. Facts are stubborn things, and the jury didn't look like they were buying what she was selling. You could see the jurors, regular Americans, looking at the evidence, then looking at her, and just shaking their heads. They know what a mortgage application looks like. They know you don't just forget to mention millions of dollars. But the real fireworks started when the witnesses took the stand. And folks, this is where the phrase "no honor among thieves" really comes into play. You remember the boyfriend? The one getting those sweet consulting gigs? Well, while he didn't testify against her directly yet, the prosecution brought in the accountant, the guy who actually moved the money. And let me tell you, he sang like a canary. He wasn't about to go to federal prison for her. He walked the jury through every single transaction. He explained how they set up the LLCs in Delaware to hide the ownership. He explained how they used layering techniques to make the money look like legitimate business income. This is the part that hits home for our seniors. Think about how complicated the tax code is for you. My neighbor, a 72-year-old retired nurse, was in tears last year because she made a mistake on her paperwork and owed the IRS $500. She was terrified they were going to take her house. She plays by the rules. She respects the law. And here we have this witness describing a sophisticated, calculated criminal enterprise run by a sitting member of Congress. It makes you sick. It makes you realize that while you are worrying about following the speed limit, these people are driving 100 miles per hour on the wrong side of the road and laughing at you for being careful. The most damning moment? The prosecution played a video clip. It was AOC, from a few years ago, lecturing a bank CEO about accountability and ethics. They played the clip, paused it, and then held up a bank statement showing a $250,000 transfer from a dark money donor into her personal account the very next day. The silence in that courtroom was deafening. You could feel the air get sucked out of the room. It was the moment the mask didn't just slip, it shattered. She wasn't looking at the jury during that part. She was looking down at her hands, fidgeting. The arrogance was gone. The girl boss energy? Evaporated. We are watching a tragedy, in a way. Not a tragedy for her, she made her bed, but a tragedy for the country. It proves that the rot in DC goes deep. But it also shows that the justice system, flawed as it is, can still work when people like Dan Bongino refuse to let a story die. This trial isn't just about punishing a crime. It is about vindicating the truth. It is about proving that you can't gaslight the American people forever. Hey, quick check-in. How are you feeling about this trial coverage? Is your blood boiling yet? If you think she deserves the maximum sentence, let me know in the comments. And please, help us grow this channel so we can keep bringing you the real news. Subscribe, like, share this with your friends. We need everyone to see this. Let's talk about the defense's cross-examination. They tried to discredit the accountant. They called him a liar, a rat, a disgruntled employee. But they couldn't explain the documents. That's the beauty of a paper trail. You can call a witness a liar, but you can't call a bank routing number a liar. The numbers are the numbers. And every time the defense lawyer raised his voice, trying to create drama, the prosecutor just calmly pointed back to the screen. Exhibit A, Exhibit B, Exhibit C. It was a slaughter. It was like watching a heavyweight fighter take on a toddler. There was a moment where the judge, a stern older gentleman who clearly has no patience for nonsense, actually had to admonish AOC's legal team for trying to turn the courtroom into a political rally. He told them, "Counsel, save the speeches for the stump. In here, we deal with evidence." Can I get an amen? Finally, someone telling these people to shut up and look at the facts. That is what we have been waiting for. That is what every senior citizen who has been talked down to by these coastal elites has been waiting for. A grown-up in the room to say, Enough. As the closing arguments approached, the vibe shifted from shock to inevitability. You could see it in the faces of the reporters in the gallery. Even the ones who loved her, the ones who wrote puff pieces about her skincare routine, looked defeated. They knew. They knew it was over. The narrative had collapsed. The hero of the working class was revealed to be just another grifter in a designer suit. The prosecution's closing statement was a masterpiece. He didn't scream. He didn't shout. He just walked the jury through the betrayal. He talked about the trust that voters place in their representatives. He talked about the oath of office. And he pointed at her and said, "She didn't just steal money. She stole your faith. She stole the idealism of a generation and cashed it in for a mansion." It was powerful stuff. I saw a few jurors nodding. That's the kill shot, folks. When the jury starts nodding along with the prosecutor, you better start packing your toothbrush because you are going away for a long time. We are now waiting for the verdict. The jury is out. They are deliberating. But based on what we saw in that courtroom, the undeniable records, the shell companies, the testimony, the sheer weight of the evidence, it is hard to see any other outcome but guilty. But in DC, you never know until the gavel bangs. Will the jury have the courage to do what is right? Will they hold a powerful politician accountable? We are going to find out in the next video. We are going to cover the verdict live, and then we are going to talk about the sentencing. You do not want to miss the moment reality finally catches up with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Hit that subscribe button, turn on the bell, and get ready. The finale is coming, and it is going to be one for the history books. See you in the next one. You know that silence right before a thunderstorm breaks? That heavy, oppressive stillness where the birds stop singing and the air feels electric? That was the mood in the courtroom this morning. It wasn't the rowdy chaos of the protests outside anymore. Inside, it was the sound of a career flatlining. We have been waiting for this moment, haven't we? For years, we watched the theatrics, the magazine covers, the Met Gala dresses, and the absolute disdain for the working man. We watched them spit on the Constitution while they lined their pockets. But today, the universe finally balanced the books. Today, the bill came due. And let me tell you, the price of admission to the federal penitentiary is steep. Before I read you the verdict that shook Washington to its core, take a second. If you believe that justice is blind and that nobody, and I mean nobody, is too big to jail, smash that like button. Hit subscribe and ring the bell. We are documenting history here, and you are part of the team that demanded the truth. The jury walked in. 12 ordinary Americans. Not politicians, not lobbyists, not celebrities. Just 12 people who looked at the mountains of evidence, the bank statements, the shell companies, the lies, and made a decision. You could see AOC at the defense table. She wasn't slouching. She was rigid. Her knuckles were white, gripping the table like she was trying to hold onto her last shred of power. She looked at the jury, searching for a friendly face, a sympathetic nod. She found none. The foreman stood up. I swear, time stopped. We the jury find the defendant, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, guilty. Count 1, wire fraud. Guilty. Count 2, tax evasion. Guilty. Count 3, filing false financial disclosures. Guilty. It went on and on. Guilty. 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 It was like a drumbeat. With every guilty, you could physically see her shrink. The posture collapsed. The defiance melted away. And for the first time, we saw genuine fear in her eyes. Not the fake tears for a photo op at a fence. Real, raw, human panic. This wasn't a Twitter ratio. You can't block a federal judge. You can't mute a jury verdict. The reality of the situation hit her like a freight train. She isn't Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez anymore. She is convict Ocasio-Cortez. The judge, God bless him, didn't waste any time. He looked straight at her and delivered a lecture that should be etched into stone in front of the Capitol building. He said, "You were entrusted with the highest honor of this land. You were sent here to serve the people. Instead, you served yourself. You used the rhetoric of class warfare to hide your own greed. That is not just a crime. It is a betrayal of the public trust." And then came the sentence. The moment we have all been speculating about. Would she get probation? Would she get a slap on the wrist because of who she is? 6 years. 6 years in federal prison. Let that sink in. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. 6 years. That's it? She stole millions. And I get it. If you or I did a fraction of what she did, they'd throw away the key. If a grandmother in Nebraska forgets to declare her bingo winnings, the IRS wants her blood. But in the world of political crime, 6 years is an eternity. It is a career death sentence. It is the end of the road. It means she will be sitting in a cell while the next few elections happen. It means the squad has lost its captain. But the most satisfying part wasn't the number of years. It was the immediate aftermath. Usually, these politicians get to walk out on bail, wave to the cameras, and appeal for years while living in luxury. Not this time. Because of the flight risk associated with her offshore connections and the severity of the fraud, the judge ordered her into custody immediately. This is the image that is going to be in history books. A US Marshal, a guy who looks like he eats nails for lunch, walked up to her. He didn't ask for her autograph. He told her to stand up and put her hands behind her back. Click. That sound. The sound of handcuffs locking onto the wrists of someone who thought they were untouchable. It was the sweetest sound I have heard in years. Can we just pause for a second to appreciate the irony? The woman who wanted to abolish the police, who demonized law enforcement every chance she got, is now being escorted away by them to a cage built by the state. You really can't write fiction this good. As they led her out, the courtroom erupted. Not with cheers, it was too solemn for that, but with a collective exhale. It was the sound of the spell breaking. The media in the back row, the ones who spent years acting as her PR team, were frantic. They were typing furiously, trying to spin this. A tragic fall, they'll call it. A miscarriage of justice, they'll scream. But we know better. We saw the receipts. We saw the house. We know the truth. Hey, if you are loving this breakdown of justice in action, don't forget to comment below. What do you think about the 6-year sentence? Too late. Just right. Let me know. And please, subscribe and hit the bell. We are going to follow this all the way to the prison gates. Let's bring this back to the real victims here. The American people. Specifically, the seniors I fight for on this channel. Think about the 65-year-old veteran who worked in a steel mill, breathed in soot for 40 years, and now lives on a pension that barely buys groceries. He watched this woman go on TV and say America is an evil, racist, broken country. He watched her spit on the flag he fought for. And now, he gets to see that the system, as broken as it is, still has a pulse. He gets to see that you can't just lie your way to the top and stay there forever. This verdict sends a message to every other politician in DC. We are watching. The era of the uni party getting away with murder is cracking. If they can take down the golden girl of the far left, they can take down anyone. It's a warning shot. You better check your books. You better make sure your consulting fees are legit. Because the American people are awake, and we are angry, and we have stopped buying the lies. The scene outside the courthouse when they drove her away was chaotic. The van, a plain, government transport van, no limos today, pushed through the crowd. Her supporters were crying, literally wailing in the streets. It was like a cult losing its leader. And honestly, that's what it was. It was a cult of personality. They didn't worship her policies. They worshipped the image. And the image just got booked, fingerprinted, and swapped out for a jumpsuit that definitely isn't from the Met Gala collection. She has been stripped of her committee assignments. She has been removed from Congress. Her seat is vacant. The power she craved is gone. The millions she allegedly stole? Seized. The mansion. It's going to be sold off by the feds. She lost everything. And she did it to herself. That is the tragedy of hubris. She flew too close to the sun, fueled by other people's money, and she burned. But here is the witty realist take. Don't get complacent. This is one head of the Hydra. There are plenty more where she came from. The corruption in that city is a feature, not a bug. A got caught because she got sloppy, and because Dan Bongino and a few brave souls wouldn't let it go. We need to keep that energy. We need to keep applying the pressure. We are not done yet. The trial is over, the sentence is read, but the story isn't finished. In the final part of this series, we are going to look at the aftermath. We are going to talk about what happens next for the country, how the political landscape shifts, and what life inside is going to look like for the former Congresswoman. We are going to wrap this up with a look at the future of America now that the mask is off. Make sure you are subscribed. You do not want to miss the grand finale. It's time to close the book on the AOC era and start writing a new chapter for the USA. See you in the next one. You know that feeling when you finally wake up from a fever dream? The sweat is drying, the headache is fading, and the world just looks clearer. That is where we are today, America. The storm has passed. The headlines are shifting. And somewhere in a federal facility, far away from the cameras, the filters, and the adoring crowds, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is waking up to a reality that no amount of spin can change. The squad is down a member. The movement is headless. And for the first time in a long time, the American taxpayer can look at Washington, D.C. and see a glimmer of accountability. Before we wrap up this saga with a look at the future, do me one last favor. If you have been with us on this ride, if you believe in uncovering the truth no matter how uncomfortable it is, smash that subscribe button. Leave a comment saying truth wins, and ring that notification bell. We are building an army of critical thinkers here, and we need you on the front lines. So, let's talk about the aftermath. What happens when the most famous woman in politics trades her designer wardrobe for a jumpsuit that, let's be honest, isn't going to be setting any trends? We are calling it Orange is the New Green Deal. It's poetic justice, isn't it? The woman who wanted to control every aspect of your life, what car you drive, what stove you cook on, how much of your paycheck you get to keep, now has zero control over her own. She is told when to eat, when to sleep, and when to stand. For someone fueled by narcissism and attention, the loss of freedom is tough, but the loss of the spotlight? That is the real torture. There are no Twitter likes in federal prison. There are no clapping emojis. There is just silence and 4 concrete walls. But let's look outside those walls. Let's look at the panic sweeping through the swamp. You think her friends are sleeping well tonight? Think again. The phone lines in D.C. are melting down. Dan Bongino kicked over the anthill, and now every other politician who has been playing the consulting fee game is scrambling to hide their tracks. They are shredding documents, they are closing accounts, they are sweating bullets. Because the precedent has been set. The untouchable label has been ripped off. If the feds can take down the golden goose of the progressive left, nobody is safe. And that is exactly how it should be. Fear. They should fear the people. They should fear the law. For too long, we feared them, feared their audits, feared their mandates. Now, the tables have turned. I want to talk to the seniors watching this, to the generation that remembers when shame was actually a thing in politics. You guys have seen it all. You saw Nixon, you saw Clinton, you saw the rise and fall of empires. But this hits different. This validates everything you have been saying at the Thanksgiving table while your grandkids rolled their eyes. You told them that socialism is a scam used by the elites to get rich while the poor stay poor. You were right. You told them that these politicians don't care about the climate. They care about control and cash. You were right. This conviction is your vindication. It's proof that wisdom and experience still matter, and that you can smell a rat even when it's wrapped in a pretty package. The $4.2 million mansion? It's hitting the market. Seized by the government. It's going to be sold to pay back the taxes she ducked and the fine she owes. It is a fire sale, folks. And every penny recovered is a victory for the working class. It's a symbolic reclamation of our dignity. We aren't just an ATM for the ruling class. We are the owners of this country, and we just evicted a squatter who was trash-talking the landlord. But we have to be realists here, hence the name of the channel. One conviction doesn't clean the swamp. It just drains one puddle. The media machine is already trying to rewrite history. Have you seen the op-eds? They are already painting her as a martyr, a political prisoner. They are ignoring the wire transfers, ignoring the shell companies, ignoring the cold, hard facts of the fraud. They want you to believe she is Nelson Mandela in heels. Don't fall for it. Don't let them gaslight you. Keep the receipts. Remind your neighbors, your friends, and those stubborn relatives what actually happened. She wasn't jailed for her ideas. She was jailed for her greed. Period. This whole saga exposes the fragility of the woke empire. It was built on projection. They accused everyone else of being corrupt, of being greedy, of being privileged. And all along, they were looking in a mirror. It turns out, the people screaming the loudest about equity were the ones tilting the scales in their own favor. It's the ultimate hustle. And now that the hustle is exposed, the movement is hollow. Without their charismatic leader, without the moral high ground, What do they have left? Just bad policies and a track record of failure. Let's check the pulse in the comments one last time. Do you think this will stop other politicians from stealing, or will they just get better at hiding it? I want to know your cynical or optimistic take. Drop it below. And seriously, if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? The next scandal is right around the corner, and we are going to be the first ones to break it down. So, what is the legacy of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez? It's not the Green New Deal. It's not tax the rich. Her legacy is a warning. It is a cautionary tale for every young idealist who goes to Washington thinking they can change the world without changing themselves. The swamp changes you. The money seduces you. And if you aren't careful, if you lose your moral compass, you end up exactly where she is, in a cell, wondering where it all went wrong. But her legacy is also a gift to us. It woke us up. It reminded us that we have to be vigilant. We can't just vote and tune out. We have to watch the money. We have to support investigators like Bongino who do the heavy lifting. We have to be the checks and balances, because the system clearly won't police itself unless we force it to. As we close the book on this chapter, I want you to feel good. Feel proud. This is America. It's messy, it's chaotic, and sometimes it feels broken. But every once in a while, the gears turn, the truth comes out, and justice is served. We saw that happen. We saw the mighty fall. The sun is coming up over Washington, D.C. that is a little bit cleaner today. The air smells a little less like corruption. But don't get comfortable. Keep your eyes open. Keep your powder dry. And keep demanding answers. Because the only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men and women, for the witty realists of the world, to do nothing. And we are done doing nothing. Thank you for being part of this journey. This series might be over, but the fight for the soul of our country never ends. Stay sharp, stay skeptical, and stay tuned. I'm signing off, but remember, the truth has no agenda. It just is. And we will always be here to tell it. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell. See you in the next video.